this session once again. And
This call is now being recorded.
now I'm requesting sir to continue with the session.
Sheena ma'am, തുടങ്ങാലോ അല്ലേ?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Okay. So good evening, everyone. First of all, I say thank you to St. Xavier's College for inviting me for the session. Okay, so let me start with the title of this present. The talk is Art of Problem Solving. I don't know whether it is so artistic if I am presenting this, but I hope I just want to go through the ideas of modern physics, starting from the ideas of elementary classical mechanics, and how we approach problems or how we see physical entities in a way of its dimensions, in a way of its working and all. So that's what I'm trying to convey during this talk. That's my plan. I don't know whether it will work or not, but hope I think if you are not understanding or if you have any doubt in between, you can ask me by unmuting yourself, and you can stop me at any time. No issues at all, because I don't have a particular plan of covering this much topics in this time. I will be talking what I know, and I would like to interact with you. Okay. First of all, so I will share my board. I'm using a blackboard and writing in that. I don't have a presentation, but instead I'm using a blackboard. Okay, so I will present my screen and tell me whether you are able to see this or not. Can you see my blackboard?
Yes, sir.
Yeah, yes. Okay. I will write some physics on this. Okay, it's fine. Okay, so let me start with some problem solving a problem. So what I actually meaning by solving something is, so when you're looking back to the classical mechanics ideas, what do you mean by solving something? Basically, the solution, solving a dynamical system. A second. Essentially means that you have to find something. Okay, find something which may be some functions of other parameters. So basically, if you have a particle of mass m, which is under some force or something, sometimes under some force or something, it's free, whatever be, what is our point of interest is to describe this particle every moment. You have a particular position vector for this particle, maybe r. Okay, so if this particle is moving, its trajectory will be moving. There is a trajectory for this particular particle. So its r is instantaneously changing. Okay, its r is instantaneously changing. So if you could write r as a function of t, then you can describe this particle's dynamics precisely. Okay. So what I mean by r as a function of t means you know the instantaneous position of that particle. Okay. So that actually describes everything about that, because if you know the instantaneous position of the particle, its time derivative will give you the velocity of the particle, its second derivative will give you the acceleration about the particle, and the mass times acceleration gives the force, and everything will come from that particular notion of instantaneous position with respect to time. So definitely solving a particle under some force means you have to find the r of t. Okay, so how do you find this R of t? Well, we have enough ways to find a position of a particle under some force or whatever. The basic idea was the first idea was something like Newton's equations. So Newton's equations was something like m into d square r over dt square is equal to the force F. Okay, so that is a vector equation. So F equals ma. This is a famous equation. Was what we call F equals m times a. Okay, so m is the mass of the particle, a is the acceleration of the particle, and F is the force acting on it. Okay, so it is obvious that if there is no force, there is no acceleration at all. Okay, so what is the difference between these two equations? One is simply F equal ma, and another one is F equals m d square r over dt square. So this first one is basically a differential equation. It's a differential equation. Okay, it's a differential equation that is quite important in mathematics, or basically the language of physicists is to solve the physical entities, the physical problems is through the language of mathematics. So actually we are describing a system under some force which is moving in particular speed and in particular position instantaneously vary, and everything is described in this particular equation. Okay, so how to solve that equation? So you have enough methods to solve a differential equation. And once you are able to solve this, you will reach in a solution for this. Okay, you will reach in a solution. Okay, so you can also write this force as some negative gradient of some potential energy, some negative gradient of some potential energy of V of R. Okay, so again that equation becomes split and it becomes a new differential equation. Okay, so we know what's a gradient of something. So this is some m into d square r by dt square is equal to minus del of v of r, minus del of v of r. So this is equation which has some energy element in it, position, mass, time, and everything, and there is a gradient operator also. Okay, so let me analyze this equation in detail. That's what my plan in the entire talk. Okay, so to analyze this particular equation, I just want to reduce this into one dimension, because we are dealing with R. R is a three-dimensional position vector which has a constituting. So hope you know this vector R is actually it's some x I cap plus y j cap plus z k cap. Okay, it has all the three components. But for simplicity, if I reduce this R into a one-dimensional string, so that is a basic strategy we used in physics to describe things in a simpler way, in a simpler dimensions. Okay, so once you are able to solve things in one dimension, you can extend this to 2 dimensions and 3 dimensions and so on. Okay, so the basic idea is to simplify this entire problem by reducing this into a one dimension, because if we are taking only x, okay, there is no y and z components. So the particle is completely restricted to move in this particular x-axis. Its domain is it's basically from some minus infinity to plus infinity. Okay, so what happens to this equation? This becomes m into d square x over dt square equals minus gradient of some v of x. So everything is written in terms of x. Everywhere you find r, you are replacing with x. Basically, we start with x and then generalize to r. But I started from r and we compressed into x. Okay, so what is del? You know what is del? Del is some m into some d square x over dt square equal to some del is minus some dou over dou x, okay, of this v of x. Okay, so this is the compressed form of this equation, and just analyze its dimensions. Okay, so what about m? This is mass. You know, this is the mass of the particle. Mass of the particle. X is some it's the position. Okay, it's the length quantity. It's the length quantity. You have a d over dt square, d square by dt square, having a dimension of 1 over time square. 1 over time square, because this is d square by dt square, a differential operator having a dimension of 1 over time square. Okay, about this v of x, that is the energy. This is the potential energy. This is the potential energy. Okay, and what about dou by dou x? It's again a differential in x. It's a differential in x. So there's a dimension of 1 by length. 1 by length. Okay. So just analyze this entire dimensions here. Here you have a mass. We write as m. Okay. Then you have a length here, and you have a time square in the denominator. Here there is a 1 over length, and then you have the energy. Then you have the energy in the right hand side. Okay, so then making energy into one side, this becomes m l square t to the power minus 2 ml square t to the power minus 2. That is precisely the dimension of energy. Okay. Or even if you know the dimension of energy, you can plug that dimension of energy, and that will say that you can balance the dimensions of both sides. So this is one fundamental principle, fundamental idea behind physical equations, that all the equations are dimensionally consistent. All the equations are dimensionally consistent. So throughout the lecture, whenever I say you some problems and say you some equation, say you something, I will definitely check its dimensions, whether they are consistent or not. Okay. So what are the basic ideas in dealing with the dimensions is that you cannot add. So if you are adding some quantities, some A and B, definitely A and B should have the same dimension. Should have the same dimensions. A and B should have the same dimensions. Okay. Or even if you are subtracting A from B or B from A, it should have the same dimensions. So you cannot add two different dimensions quantities. Okay, so that is a very fundamental principle, a fundamental notion which you may have from even from plus two classes, but that is very essential for you to keep in your entire physics life. Whenever you are studying physics, that idea you should have that idea. So you can consistently ask the question that if somebody asks you some A plus B is there, then some A plus B, suppose I'm talking A plus B is some energy. A plus B is some energy. So there is no doubt that A is an energy, B is also an energy. Okay, so A minus B is an energy. A minus B is an energy. Then A should be an energy and B should be an energy. Okay, so there is no other choice. Instead, suppose I will ask you if A into B is an energy. There is no need of writing an energy in the right hand side, because everywhere I write energy in the right hand side. There is no such idea of writing some same quantity everywhere, every time, because I'm just taking an example. Maybe A into B is a length or whatever. So suppose A into B is an energy. So what is A and B? What is A and B? You cannot say, because this product becomes an energy. Product becomes an energy. Okay. Suppose I'm taking that B is a length quantity. B is a length quantity. Then I can guess what is my A, because A should be definitely that energy divided by length quantity. Then only A is energy divided by length into length becomes energy. Retains back. Okay. So before I've already given you the idea that B is some quantity like length. Then only you can guess what is A. Otherwise, you cannot guess what is A. Okay, it can be anything. If B is energy itself, what happens to A? Then A should be a number. A should be a scalar, because A cannot have a dimension, because if there's a dimension quantity multiplied by energy will be another quantity. Okay, so these are the basic ideas of dimensions which we use in this entire talk. And I will tell you one more example. If something like A divided by B is some quantity like velocity. Okay, okay, we will keep on energy. Okay, this is energy. A by B is energy. Then can you guess what is A and B? Maybe we cannot guess. If I say this A is time, A is time, A is time, then you can guess what should be my B. Can you guess, anyone? It should be time divided by energy. Time divided by energy. Otherwise, I will not retain energy here, because if A is time, B is time divided by energy, then time goes, and it's 1 upon 1 hour energy, that is energy. Okay, so this is the basic idea of a tactical idea of solving problems throughout the physics. So it will be very helpful for you to if you keep on track on these dimensions in the following expressions. Okay, so what I started from the Newton's equations is that if you have a m, which is a some d square x over dt square, then the solution can be some function of t, okay, some x of t will be the solution. So the solution can be anything. This can be anything. Maybe suppose I'm talking, the position is something like sine t. Okay, some x of t equals some sine t. Okay, so there is some issues in this equation, or if I'm writing x of t, can be anything. Okay, it can be anything, something like maybe it's some e raised to t. So there are some issues with these kinds of expressions. So because I'm started saying like it should be just a function of time, but these functions of times are not so quite clear. What is the problem? Problem is sine of some quantity. The argument of sine should be dimensionless. It should be dimensionless. Okay. Otherwise, what is the problem? Otherwise, you cannot have sine is always a series expansion. Sine series is some x plus x cube plus x raised to 5 plus etc. That's an odd series for sine. So since it's a series summation, you cannot add time cube plus time raised to 5 etc. So this quantity should be dimensionless quantity. So I have to replace this sine into sine t by some alpha. So what should be my alpha? Alpha definitely should be my time, frame. So this is some time quantity, time dimension of time. It's not necessarily the exact time, but alpha must have a dimension of time. Okay. Then sine of this quantity is dimensionless, that is perfectly fine. But what is the dimension of right hand side? Right hand side is completely dimensionless now. Okay, so what is the dimension of the left hand side? That is length. Okay, so for a consistent maintenance, you need some quantity here, maybe some L0 or whatever, and this is a constant with the dimension of length. Okay. So this is the analysis, how to analyze a solution, a particular. So if you have a solution, then you have to analyze this solution. Similarly, here also in x of t, it's e raised to t. So exponent is something like a sine cos series. This is a series sum x e raised to t is equal to t plus t square plus t cube plus etc. So here also you cannot have a single t in the exponent. So instead you divide it with some quantity, maybe alpha. Alpha is quite arbitrary quantity. I will use everywhere. Each and every context, alpha will have different roles to do. Okay. Here also alpha is time, so this is a dimensionless quantity. It's fine. But again, the entire exponent is now dimensionless. So you have to put something here, maybe an L0, to keep the dimension of x of t. So this idea of how to dimensionally correct your equations and solutions is the key point in solving problems in physics. Okay, so this is how we solve a particle, and we have a solution of particles, and this is the same way you use. This is we extracted the solution from Newtonian mechanics, and from this was the first idea, Newtonian mechanics, and the earlier equation which we wrote was the result of Newtonian mechanics, and we further improved from this Newtonian mechanics to some kind of Lagrangian mechanics. You must be knowing that the idea of Lagrangian mechanics. So what is the difference between Newtonian mechanics to Lagrangian mechanics? In Lagrangian mechanics, we are dealing with a Lagrangian L, which is equal to T minus V. T minus V is the kinetic energy minus potential energy. So can anyone tell me? So it is obvious. Kinetic energy minus potential energy. Kinetic energy minus energy. So energy minus energy, Lagrangian should have a dimension of energy. Okay. So Lagrangian equation is basically dealing with energy. Rather, Newtonian mechanics was dealing with force. Basically, that was vector equation, which I wrote simplistically without skipping that vector notation. But basically, Newtonian equation is a vector equation, whereas Lagrangian equation is a scalar equation. So, distinguishing a vector equation from a scalar equation is so far easy. Like there is no directional dependence in a scalar equation. Okay. So Lagrangian mechanics is in much a way simpler in comparing to a Newtonian mechanics, where it's a vector equation, and we further improvise this into some Hamilton's mechanics, some Hamilton's equations. And coming to Hamilton, there is a Hamiltonian. You must be knowing it. Hamiltonian H is equal to PQ dot minus L. P is the momentum, Q is the position, Q dot is time derivative, minus L. Okay. So here also, what is the dimension of H? So looking at the Lagrangian, something minus Lagrangian is something. Okay. So PQ dot, even if you don't know what is PQ dot, you can assure that if L is energy, you cannot subtract something other energy from something else. So this also should be an energy term. So totally, this is again an energy term. Okay. So Hamiltonian is an energy element. PQ dot is an energy element. Lagrangian itself is an energy element. So we are all dealing with energy. So the ultimate, what we say, the advantage of Hamilton's equations is that they are dealing with the first order equations rather than a second order equations. Even in the Newtonian mechanics, we saw it's a second order equation. We have a d square by dt square, etc. In Lagrangian mechanics also, you have a dou by dou of dou L by dou Q dot. There is a second order equations. You must be knowing that. Hamilton's equations are first order in time. Okay, first order in both. So the first order equations are easier to solve in mathematics because it's just need only one condition, whereas the second order equations needs two initial conditions. That will be a difficult thing. Okay, so these are all ways to extract the position of a particle, instantaneous position of a particle under certain energy or certain force. Okay, so this is the basic ways to how to solve a particle and how to analyze its dimensions with the contents in it. Okay, so then we again move to the idea of waves. Okay, how we solve waves. Basically, the idea of waves is that waves are all sinusoidal in nature. Okay, and you must be knowing the wave equation in one dimension. I am writing a wave equation in one dimension. U of x comma t over dou x square equals 1 over v square dou square u of x t by dou t square. Okay. So here you just look at the terms in your equation. So I hope you know the wave equation as such. So this is the wave equation. It's a second order equation. It's a second order equation in both. It's a second order equation in both space and second order equation in time. Okay. So these kinds of equations are quite beautiful in physics, like they are symmetric equations, and they are Lorentz invariant as well, and we will, while you're dealing with the theory of relativity. Okay, well, we skip all these kind of things, but we have to check whether this is dimensionally consistent or not. Okay. So let us look at what is in the left hand side. There's a dou square by dou x square. Dou square by dou x square has a dimension of 1 by length square. 1 by length square. Let me leave u of xt for a while. What happens here? It's 1 by velocity square. 1 by velocity square into, you have a dou square by dou t square, that is again 1 by time square. Okay, then you have a u of xt here as an u of xt there. Okay, there is a u of xt here as well as a u of xt there. So what is the dimension of u of xt? If anyone knows, I mean, in a wave equation, what is u of xt? So of course, I told you can interact me through your chat. If you have any answer, you can type it in your chat box, whether you want to answer, if you have any. Okay, so my question was, what was u of xt while dealing with a wave equation? Maybe may not necessarily calling it u of xt, some other calling it some y of xt in some textbooks. So whatever we, what is that one? So the interesting fact is that is an arbitrary quantity. That's an arbitrary quantity. You cannot specify a particular dimension for this because for each and every wave, this quantity may differ. Okay. So for a water ripples, this may be the height or a length quantity. For sound, something like waves like sound, it may be pressure. For waves like electromagnetic in nature, that could be electric field or magnetic field, etc. So u of xt is a very quite arbitrary quantity. So let us look at its dimension. Whatever be the dimension of u of xt, you have a u of xt here as well as you have a u of xt here. So if u of xt is length, I have a length here and a length here. Okay. If u of xt is something like time, I have a time here, I have a time here. If u of xt is electric field, I have an electric field here and then I have electric field here. So whatever be the dimension of u of xt, that will cancel with the portion in the right hand side. Okay, so we just need not to check the dimensional consistency of u of xt, because in both sides u of xt is presenting in a single power. Okay, then what is remaining? It's 1 by length square, it's 1 by velocity square into time square. You know what is velocity into time is length. So this is again 1 by length square. Here it's also 1 by length square. So that is the dimensional consistency of a wave equation, or you can generalize this into 3 dimensions, which will not alter the dimensions at all. You will still get it is something like a 1 by length square, consistent in both sides. Okay. So I will also write a solution of this wave equation. You may be familiar with this. U of xt is equal to some u0 sine kx minus omega t. Okay. So this is a solution. So obviously, if you are looking at a solution like this is the solution because this is a differential equation containing u of xt, and if you solve this differential equation, you will eventually come up with a u of xt. So this is a two functional, I mean, a function with two parameters, right? It's a function of x as well as t. Okay, and that is why we have to use this partial differentials here. We have to use partial differentials here because this is a function of both x and t. Okay, you see our partial differential here. Okay, so let us look at the dimensions first of all. I have told you sine of something should be dimensionless. It should be dimensionless. That means kx minus omega t should be a number, should be dimensionless. Okay. So how is it possible for anyone to choose a kx and omega t which is dimensionless? Because we already know x has a dimension of length and t has a dimension of time. Okay. So this product is dimensionless. This product is dimensionless means k must have a dimension of 1 by length. 1 by length. So this is dimensionless. 1 by length into length is a number. Omega should be having a dimension of 1 over t. 1 over t. Okay. So k and omega. So I haven't introduced to you k, omega. What is k or what is omega anywhere in this talk, but we can instantly see by seeing a sign of some quantity, you can immediately talk about its dimensions. So k should have a dimension of 1 over length, and omega should have a dimension of 1 over t. 1 over t. So you must be knowing what is k. K is actually 2 pi over lambda. 2 pi over lambda. Wait a second, just 1 minute. 1 minute.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Okay.
Okay, coming back. Hope my board is still visible. Okay, so you must be knowing what is k. K is actually 2 pi over lambda. Okay, 2 pi is a dimensionless quantity. Lambda is the wavelength. Lambda is the wavelength. So definitely this is a length quantity. Okay, this is a wavelength. So it is clear that it is 1 over length, no doubt at all. Okay. Then on the other hand, omega is what we call the angular frequency, 2 pi nu, okay, and nu having a frequency which has a dimension of 1 over time, and that is why this is a dimension of 1 over time. Okay, frequency is 1 over time, Okay, so the idea is to convey you how to analyze these kinds of solutions or equations or whatever you come across physics. Okay, so the problem is not yet solved. What is U0? What is U0? So look at here. What is U of xt? Actually, I don't know what is U of xt because U of xt is a quite an arbitrary quantity. If it is length, then U0 is also length. Okay. If this is length, then U0 is length. If this is electric field, then this is electric field. Okay. If this is magnetic field, this is U0 is magnetic field. Okay. So that is the way you put you assemble. I mean, you put the dimensions to each and every quantity. So you cannot specify. If you get an equation, you can simply analyze it, and you can fragment. I mean, defragment this kind of dimension fix in each and every terms. Okay, so that is actually a very good tool to analyze the solutions. Also, I mean, if you have some 4 options in some particular competitive examinations, you can easily analyze its dimensions and come to the solution. So this is the basic idea of classical mechanics, how to solve a particle and how to solve a wave separately. Okay, then we are just stepping into the ideas of modern physics. The ideas of modern physics. This is basically the ideas of quantum mechanics. Okay, so quantum mechanics is derived out of this modern physics ideas. So what is the key idea behind is this, that this was proposed by the idea of matter waves. So the idea put forward by Louis de Broglie in the earlier time of 20th century, maybe 1900s to 1920 in between. The idea is that if a particle is so small, this is so small, it exhibits both particle and wave behavior. So we already in the first session I have solved for a particle and I have solved for a wave, but these kind of I'm not able to say these kind of particles, these kind of objects. Maybe they exist in both the idea of particles and waves. They exhibit both the behaviors. Okay. So these kind of things, how could we analyze this? How could we solve this? Because we used a position vector r for a particular particle, and we used a u of xt or u of rt for the variation in a wave. Then how can you specify, how can you solve these kind of matter waves? So that was the question raised, and that is solved by a lot of scientists, and eventually Schrodinger put forward the equation and whatever. Before that, the categorization of how small you are so small is, or something like that. How much small is this? So there is a length scale which needed to categorize this kind of matter waves from the other particles, and that length scale is what we call a de Broglie wavelength. De Broglie wavelength, and that de Broglie wavelength is given by lambda, which is equal to h over p. So again, looking at the dimensions, this lambda is a length quantity. P is a momentum, that is mass times velocity. Okay. Then what should be this h? What should be this h? H is actually a constant. It's actually a constant, but definitely it carries a dimension. H is a constant. It's true. H is what we call a Planck's constant. That is true, but it carries a dimension. Okay. So what is the dimension of h? The dimension of h is given by h is equals to lambda into p. Okay. So that is actually some length into momentum. length into momentum. So can anyone tell me what is a length into momentum? Length into momentum is actually angular momentum. Angular momentum, because angular momentum L is basically R cos P. R cos P. R is the position vector having length, and P is the momentum, linear momentum. R cos P is the angular momentum. So lambda into P, lambda into P is having a dimension of angular momentum. Having a dimension of angular momentum. That's a very important information. Angular momentum. So the Planck's constant, the so-called Planck's constant, is an angular momentum quantity. It's an angular momentum quantity. So you must be knowing its value. H is equal to some 6.626 into 10 raised to minus 34 joule second. Okay. Okay. So I would like to add a point in this context. So I used to see my students or someone in the undergraduate programs who usually remember this quantity, and forget this order. Okay. So he or she may, if I ask them some questions like what is the Planck's constant, they might be knowing the 6.626, but they are not quite sure about it's 10 raised to minus 34 or 10 raised to plus 34. Okay. Okay. So what is wrong with that is, if you are not able to precisely, not able to speak about the order, you don't know it is plus 10 raised to minus 34 or plus 34, you are making an error of 10 raised to plus 68. So that's huge. Else, if you don't know it's something like, I don't remember whether it's 6.626 or 5.2626, then it's fine. So you are making an order of 10 raised to minus 34 itself. Okay, that's not too much dangerous. Not too much dangerous. What I mean is that in these kind of situations, order is having a first preference. Order is having the first preference. You just look at to the order first. 10 raised to minus 34. So you should memorize it and encrypt in your memory, like Planck's constant is of the order of 10 raised to minus 34. What do you mean by 10 raised to minus 34? 10 raised to minus 34 is a very small quantity. Very small quantity. It's 1 upon 10 raised to 34. 1 upon 10 raised to 34. You are splitting 1 into 10 raised to 34 means 1 followed by 34 zeros. Okay. So this is 1 followed by another. You have 34 zeros. So that is a very tiny quantity. അങ്ങനെ ഒരു ക്വാണ്ടിറ്റിനെയാണ് നിങ്ങൾ അറിയാതെ 10 raised to plus 38 എന്ന് പറയുന്ന സമയത്ത് you are making an error of a huge error of 10 raised to 68. Rather, if you don't mind 6.626 or 6.628 or 6 point, even if you forget 6 point something, the other quantity, still it is fine. Still it is fine, but don't make an error in the order. Okay. So these kinds of quantities are quite familiar. In physics, for example, you must be knowing the conversion of a joule and an electron volt. Okay. Joule and electron volt. Both are units of energy. Both are units of energy. Okay. So what is 1 electron volt? 1 electron volt is equal to, you must be knowing, is 1.6 into 10 raised to minus 19. Okay, then it joules. Okay, 1 electron volt is equal to 1.6 into 10 raised to minus 19 joules. What it means is that you are making a 1 electron volt unit of energy by taking a 1.6 joules, okay, and dividing it with 1 followed by 19 zeros. Hope I have put this 19 zeros. So actually this much box you have, you are subdividing 1.6 into this much boxes, and then one box of energy is what we call a 1 electron volt. 1 electron volt. So this is ഇതാണ് ശരിക്കും നിങ്ങൾ മനസ്സിലാക്കേണ്ടത്. അതായത് how we which unit is bigger and which unit is smaller, and where we use these kinds of units and where we use the other kinds of units. Okay, so 1 electron volt is now you understand, looking at this expression, 1 electron volt equal to 1.6 divided by this much quantity. You will never ever forget whether which one is a bigger one. You can easily say that 1 electron is much smaller, much smaller quantity compared to 1.6. But if you are writing some equation like this, you may not remember this side. Suppose what happens if you write in an examination 1 electron volt equal to 1.6 into 10 raised to plus 19 joules. So the error becomes 10 raised to 38. 10 raised to 38. Okay, so everything will spoil. The entire scale of the problem will go. Okay, so you have to rewrite your entire equation in power form to analyze which one is larger and which one is smaller. So that you have to by heart, by make it in your heart that this electron volt is a very smaller unit of energy and joule is comparatively very large unit of energy. Okay, so while dealing with an electron, electrons energy and subatomic particles, like with the energy which we discover, encounter in quantum mechanics, are all in units of electron volts. Okay. Okay, so I just telling this of okay, well, so this is the idea of lambda equal to h by p, and h was the Planck's constant. H was the Planck's constant. Planck's constant, and you must be knowing that how we come across this Planck's constant. How we come across this Planck's constant, because this is a very tiny quantity. How we come across this Planck's constant? This is came from the black body spectrum, black body radiation. So you have you must be learned there are some two expression. One, there is a Rayleigh-Jeans formula. Really hope you are all final BSc students and your 5th semester is already done. Otherwise, pardon me, because you Chirile.
There are first year students also, sir.
Oh no, okay.
It's okay.
Okay, fine. Okay, then you will learn it in the 5th semester, baby. So there is a Rayleigh-Jeans formula, and there is a Planck's corrected formula. I will tell you what is a Rayleigh-Jeans formula and Planck's corrected formula. Okay, so basically this is dealing with the spectral energy density of a black body. So there you have a black body with some light is trapped inside it. Okay, and it emits some radiation. And what is the spectral energy density of these kinds of radiations? Okay, so one idea of Rayleigh-Jeans formula was developed under considering light completely as waves. Okay. So then what happens? We followed the entire formulation of waves, and we incorporated the ideas of waves into the black body spectrum, and we derived the black body expression. Okay, so I will write that equation and we will just analyze its dimensions as we did in the previous cases. 1 second. Okay, so the energy density is given by some u nu equal to is a function of the frequency equal to some 8 pi k t over c cube into nu square. Okay, so what are this? This is an energy density, is a function of frequency. It's a function of frequency. Then this is the functional dependence of frequency. It goes like nu square, and these are all constants. K is the Boltzmann constant. K is what we call the Boltzmann constant, and C is what we call the speed of light in vacuum. Speed of light in vacuum. And T is of course the temperature. T is of course the temperature. Okay, so looking at dimensionally, this is Boltzmann constant times temperature, like u square by c cube. We have the dimension of energy density. That's fine. Okay. So plotting this u versus nu square for a particular temperature, it gives like it's a function of nu square. Like x square and the function that is parabolic. Like it's parabolic. So this is function. Okay. So this goes like nu square, and this is u of nu. Okay, and it's nu versus u of nu. Okay, but the experimental ideas obtain that the spectral energy density not goes like this. It is going like same in the first few slides, first few areas, and then goes like this. It means for smaller frequencies up to this, these two graphs are matching. But it is deviating from this point. For the large frequencies. Okay. So you know from in this visible spectrum, this has a higher frequency, and this has a lower frequency. This has a higher frequency, and this has a lower frequency. And for the higher frequency regions, that is UV and ultraviolet, etc. Okay, let me tell you the electromagnetic spectrum also in this point. So that is very interesting. Okay. So I told you the frequency is increasing for light, frequency is decreasing for light, and what happens if frequency increasing and decreasing in terms of light? So in the electromagnetic spectrum, you know this is your VIBGYOR, right? Your VIBGYOR, and there are electromagnetic radiations which is ahead of this red, that is called infrared, and you have a microwave, and then you have a radio wave, etc. And in the left portion, you have some waves like ultraviolet, X-rays, gamma rays, etc. So what is the standard of writing this is an electromagnetic spectrum? Is that this is I have written in the decreasing order of frequency. That is, this has a larger frequency, and then the frequency is decreasing. Okay, frequency is decreasing. Frequency is denoted by nu. Frequency is denoted by nu, and I've written a nu in an inverse direction. Is nu is getting smaller and smaller up to when you reaches the radio waves. Okay. So the frequency and the wavelength are inversely related. So you can also write it in terms of wavelength. So if it is in decreasing order of frequency, then you can write it as an increasing order of wavelength. Okay, you can write in increasing order of wavelength. So this has a smaller wavelength, smaller, larger, larger, and larger. Okay. So just looking at this diagram, you can say that gamma radiations are having higher frequency, and that is why it has very smaller wavelength. Okay. X-ray is a little bit smaller frequency than gamma ray, but having a higher wavelength than a gamma ray. And coming to the VIBGYOR, violet has having more frequency than red, and red is having a more wavelength than violet. Okay, and what about ultraviolet and infrared? Ultraviolet is having higher energy than violet, infrared having lesser energy than infrared, okay, and then goes to the right hand side, and microwaves and radio waves are having much larger wavelength. That means it has lesser and lesser frequency. And there is a relation between energy and frequency, which is that you must all be knowing E is equal to h nu. E is equal to h nu, where h is the same Planck's constant which we have discussed here. Means if frequency increases, energy also increases. Okay. So what happens if you are writing it in terms of energy also, these terms have the largest energy, then the energy is further decreasing. Okay. So gamma rays having the higher energy rather than X-rays, UV and everything. And even in VIBGYOR, violet is having more frequency and more energy. Red is having less frequency and less energy. And in terms of wavelength, violet is having a shorter wavelength, red is having higher wavelength. So ഈ ഒരു ചിത്രം നിങ്ങൾക്ക് എപ്പോഴും മനസ്സിലുണ്ടാവുന്നത് വളരെ നല്ലതാണ്, so that you can have a picture of which one is a larger frequency, larger wavelength, larger energy. This is a very frequent question in modern physics. Okay. You have a spectral energy density which is not matching with nu square at larger frequencies. So larger frequencies means this area, larger frequencies. So ഈ ultraviolet തൊട്ട് ഇങ്ങോട്ട് higher frequency ഉള്ളതിന് ഈ പ്രോസസ്സ് നമ്മൾ വിളിക്കുക ultraviolet catastrophe എന്നാണ്. Ultraviolet catastrophe means for a higher frequencies this is not matching. Okay, then how Planck modified in this is that he rewrote the u nu as a new equation. He rewrote the modification of Planck. Is that he modified this equation. Modified this equation to, he actually replaced some terms and he introduced some 8 pi over c cube into some h nu by e raised to h nu by kt minus 1 into nu square d. നിങ്ങൾക്ക് previous expression ആയിട്ട് നോക്കിയാൽ മനസ്സിലാവും. I have replaced the point where kt was sitting. Okay, if you replace this term, okay, no need to write d nu, I forgot, sorry. If you replace this with a kt, this was exactly the previous result, 8 pi kt by c cube nu square. So this is, so instead of kt, he introduced kt is an energy. Okay, so instead of kt we replace another energy. Okay, so instead of kt is an energy, we replace this kt with this quantity h nu by e raised to h nu by kt minus 1. Okay, നിങ്ങൾക്ക് ഇത് നോക്കിയാൽ മനസ്സിലാവും എന്താണ് ഇവിടെ ഒരു എക്സ്പോണന്റ് ഉണ്ട് അല്ലേ. You have an exponent here, e raised to h nu by kt. So by principle this exponent should be dimensionless. Means h nu by kt should be dimensionless. Okay, but we know what is kt. Kt is energy. Okay, kt is energy. So definitely h nu also energy. ഇങ്ങനെയാണ് h nu വന്നത്. Okay, this is also energy. Okay, so from here actually the Planck's constant appear. ഇവിടെ നിന്നാണ് ആദ്യമായിട്ട് Planck's constant വന്നത്. This is actually a curve fitting which we do used in, maybe you come across curve fitting in PG classes or what. So curve fitting എന്ന് പറയുകയാണെങ്കിൽ you have a curve and you have to match it. You tune your equation such that it is matching with the existing. So if you match it, if you plot this diagram, equation and plot in the angle, you will exactly get this is something exactly similar to this. Okay, so there is no discrepancies at all. There is no discrepancies at all. So that is the fundamental idea of what we call the black body radiation. So that is that is obtained, that this is E and H nu are the particle energy of a light. The particle energy of light. E is what we called some N into H nu. H nu. So the light is moving like some packets of energy, some quantum of energy. Some N is a number, some quantum of energy, and that quantum of light is what we call a photon. Okay. So light has this kind of a particle behavior. So this was the dilemma. Like some quantities which we discussed as earlier as waves do behaves like particles, and those which are we described as particles behaves like waves. Okay. So this was the dual nature which we discussed, and this was the cornerstone of the quantum mechanics, the ideas of quantum mechanics. Okay, well, so I've discussed actually the particle property of waves. Then you have the wave properties of particles as well, and one of these, I mean, so the particle properties of waves as the electron hitting on a metal surface, and it is the photoelectrons are emitted. The photoelectrons are emitted. So that is what we call a photoelectric effect. That is what we call a photoelectric effect. Photoelectric effect. So the equation of a photoelectric effect is very simple. If you have a metal surface here, there are free electrons. And light of a certain frequency hitting on this. These are all packets of H nus, and this H nus, I mean these electrons are getting energy from this H nus, and they are emitted. Okay, so we can write an energy conservation equation for this. That is, H nu should be equal to the energy needed to remove an electron from here. And that's what we call the work function of that material, plus the remaining energy will be the kinetic energy of the electron. Okay, so looking at here, so this is the basic idea of a photoelectric effect, equation of photoelectric effect. It's a very simple equation. So H nu, what was H nu? This energy of the photon, incoming photon. And phi is what we call a work function. And then this is the kinetic energy. Of the electron. This is the kinetic energy. So this equation, all the three terms, this is energy. So look at here. This is another energy. This is an energy. So there is no way a phi should also be an energy. So work function is an energy basically. Work function is the energy needed for to remove an electron from the metal surface. So that will be different for different metals. So maybe in some electron volts, I don't exactly remember the values. Okay, for example, for potassium, it is something like 2.2 electron volts. For potassium, it is 2.2 electron volts, and for a higher metal like silver, it's something like 4.7 electron volts. It means you need 4.7 electron volts to remove an electron from a silver metal surface, and you just need only 2.2 electron volts to remove an electron from a potassium metal surface. So that differs. That is the characteristic of these metals and so things. Is there any doubt? Yeah. Okay. മനസ്സിലാവുന്നുണ്ടോ? ചോദിച്ചില്ല. Is it fine?
Yes, sir, it's fine.
Well, okay. So here also we can use these ideas of dimensions, the idea of electron. So see, let me tell you. I told you the work function of this is some silver is around 4.7 electron volts. So just look at this. This is it electron volt. So this is a very smaller unit of energy, right? This is a very smaller unit of energy that is only needed to require an electron to eject an electron from this metal surface. Okay. So since you are not completely a final year student, I am skipping a point like why this photoelectric effect is called as a wave, I mean as a particle property of light, because even if it's light is a wave, the ejection of photoelectrons will happen, but it will not be simultaneous. It will not be simultaneous. This is an instantaneous process. This is an instantaneous process. That instantaneous process can only occur when the energy transfer is less like 1 to 1. 1 to 1 means energy ഇങ്ങനെ പരന്ന് കിടക്കുകയാണ്, വേവ് ആണെങ്കിൽ ഇങ്ങനെ പരന്ന് കിടന്നിട്ട് ഒരു സർഫസിൽ വന്ന് വീഴുകയാണെങ്കിൽ അതിൽ നിന്ന് എനർജി കിട്ടിയിട്ട് ഒരു ഇലക്ട്രോൺ പുറത്തേക്ക് പോകും. ദാറ്റ്സ് ഫൈൻ, ബട്ട് ദാറ്റ് കനോട്ട് ഹാപ്പൻ ഇൻസ്റ്റന്റേനിയസ്ലി. ഇൻസ്റ്റന്റേനിയസ് ആയിട്ട് ഹാപ്പൻ ചെയ്യണമെങ്കിൽ ഒരെണ്ണം വന്നിട്ട് എനർജി മറ്റൊന്നിന് 1 to 1 ആയിട്ട് ട്രാൻസ്ഫർ ചെയ്യണം. ആൻഡ് ദാറ്റ്സ് വാട്ട് ഹാപ്പൻ ഇൻ ദിസ് ഫോട്ടോഇലക്ട്രിക് effect. Okay, so let us moving into another aspect of this is another one is the scattering of photon and electron, and that's what we call a Compton effect. Compton effect. You may or may not come across this Compton effect, but let me tell you the basic idea of a Compton effect. So you have so the previous one was absorption of energy from a photon, and an electron is completely transferring from one state to another. Here, this is the partial energy change, partially giving energy from one photon to electron. So you have a photon is coming, and an electron is sitting here. Electron is sitting here. After the scattering, this is basically a scattering of a photon and electron. After the scattering, the electron moves in one direction. And light is moving with. Okay, see, just look at the diagram. I've portrayed the initial and the final of light as waves, right? As waves, but there is some significant difference. Here the wavelength is a little bit smaller. Here the wavelength is a little bit larger. What I mean by wavelength is smaller and larger, wavelength is smaller means energy is larger, and wavelength is larger means energy is smaller. Okay, so definitely this E and E, the photon energy, incident energy nekkaali cherudana scattered energy, aa baaki energy arku kittundavum, aa baaki energy ee electron kittundavum. Okay, so this electron must get an energy of this capital E minus this bigger E minus this smaller E. Okay, this bigger E minus this smaller E. Okay, because this electron was sitting idle initially and now it is moving, so definitely it must have some kinetic energy, and that kinetic energy is obtained by this transfer of energies. Okay, so what is the point of interest in this Compton effect is that you can find the shift in wavelength. You can find the shift in wavelength, which depends only on some angle, which is the angle of scattering of this photon. It's phi. You have how much angle this photon gets scattered, and you can calculate the angle, and the wavelength shift is completely depending on that factor. I will write the equation. This is the shift in wavelength, that lambda prime minus lambda, which is equal to h by mc into 1 minus cos phi. Okay, so this is the shift in wavelength of a Compton effect. Again, we will analyze it dimensionally. Like okay, so you have a cos phi here. Definitely, as I mentioned, sine or cos will be dimensional. Since phi is an angle, perfectly fine. So there is no dimension at all. So 1 minus this quantity, this is its entire quantities are dimensionless. This is dimensionless. So what is here? It is a change in wavelength. A lambda minus lambda prime or lambda prime minus lambda is still a wavelength. So this is a length. This is a length. So obviously the question is, what is h over mc? H over mc, there is no other choice. It should be a length. It should be a length. Okay. So let us look at whether it is length or not. H by mc. H arayirunnu. H in vacha arayirunnu. Just check h by mc. So what is h? H was the angular momentum. So that is length into momentum. Momentum is mass times velocity divided by mass times c. So c and v are having the same dimensions. C and v are having the same dimensions. Speed on the light in the C and v are the same dimension. And m and m goes. So this is length, precisely length. So that is fine. Okay. Ear length h by mc. Okay. So basically you can ask me what is m here. M is the mass of electron. M is the mass of an electron here. So if I want to write, this is h by mc. So this is a length. This is unlike the de Broglie wavelength, that was h by mv. So that will be different for different velocities. But here, this is a constant. This is a constant. Okay. The constant ആണ്. H Planck's constant, C is the speed of light, M is the what do we say, the mass of an electron. So for every particle, you can have a length scale of this, and that actually describes the distinction of whether a particle is an elementary particle or not. Okay. So that length scale is a very signature of each and every particle. So you can also find the value array of h by mc. The value is something like 2.426 into 10 raised to minus 12 meter. So look at the, first of all, just check the order. It's 10 raised to minus 12 meter. 10 raised to minus 12 meter. Somebody asks you, what is the Compton wavelength of an electron? What is the Compton wavelength of an electron? So you just say it's of the order of 10 raised to minus 12 meters. It's of the order of 10 raised to minus 12 meters. It doesn't matter whether you know 2.426 or you don't know 2.426. But stick on, it's of the order of 10 raised to minus 12 meters. And then you can also find the Compton wavelength of a proton. That will be h by mpc. Okay, it will be h by mpc. Okay, so that will be a little bit more smaller because mass of an proton is much larger than mass of an electron, maybe 1,000 times larger. Okay, maybe 1,000 times larger. So this will goes like some 10 raised to minus 15 meters. 10 raised to minus 15 meters. Okay, so you see, എന്താണ് ഒരു ഇലക്ട്രോണിന്റെ കോംപ്റ്റൺ വേവ് ലെങ്തിനും ഒരു പ്രോട്ടോണിന്റെ കോംപ്റ്റൺ വേവ് ലെങ്തിനും നമ്മൾ അതിനെ അനലൈസ് ചെയ്ത് എന്താണെന്ന് വെച്ചിട്ടുണ്ടെങ്കിൽ it's 10 raised to minus 12 is a little bit more smaller than 10 raised to minus 10, but 10 raised to minus 10 is the size of an atom. Okay, so electron is sitting in an atom, so that's fine, that the dimension is comparatively okay. Whereas 10 raised to minus 15 is much more smaller, and it is the Compton wavelength of a proton. Proton is a nucleon which is sitting inside a nucleus, and the scale of a nucleus is of the order of 10 raised to minus 15. So this is comparable. Okay, so each and every this kind of length scales has meanings. Okay, ഓരോന്നിനും അതിന്റെ എനർജികൾക്കും അതിന്റെ ലെങ്ത് സ്കെയിലിനും എന്തുണ്ട്, മീനിങ് ഉണ്ട്. നിങ്ങൾക്ക് നോക്കിയാൽ അറിയാം ഈ 10 raised to minus 15 മീറ്റർ അതിന്റെ ആ വേവ് ലെങ്തിലായിരിക്കും ആര് വരിക? If you look at the gamma radiations വരിക, because gamma radiations are coming out of a nucleus. So these are all related. The size of a nucleus, the Compton wavelength of a proton, and the wavelength of a gamma radiation. These are all having a same length scale of 10 raised to minus 15 meters. So this is quite important to analyze an equation dimensionally perfectly fine. That is a very important thing, as well as it is very important to analyze this length scales of each and every problem. The length scales of each and every problem, that is also a very good approach to analyze a problem. Okay. So after all Compton effect, we will coming to the ideas of quantum mechanics, and I'm not going to describe quantum mechanics or anything, but I will just tell you about ideas of wave function and its dimensions and the dimensions of Schrodinger equations, and then we will stop. Okay. ഇത്രയും ഞാൻ പറയാൻ ഉദ്ദേശിക്കുന്നുള്ളൂ. അപ്പം ഇതാണ് ഇതിൻ്റെ ഒരു ഹിസ്റ്റോറിക്കൽ advancement of like you have basic ideas of classical mechanics, then the introduction of Planck's constant and explanation of these kinds of matter waves, and finally the question is how to solve this kind of matter waves. Okay. ഇത്രയും ഐ നോ, എനിക്ക് അറിയാം ഇത്രയും സമയം ഒരുമിച്ച് ശ്രദ്ധിച്ചിരിക്കുക എന്ന് പറയുന്നത് ബുദ്ധിമുട്ടാണ്. ഹോപ്പ് ദിസ് ഇസ് റെക്കോർഡഡ്. അപ്പം നിങ്ങൾക്കും വേണമെങ്കിൽ പിന്നീട് എപ്പോഴെങ്കിലും ഇത് കേൾക്കാം. ഓക്കെ. അല്ലെങ്കിലും ഇപ്പം ഓൺലൈൻ ക്ലാസ്സൊന്നും ഒരു വലിയ സ്കൂൾ സ്ട്രക്ചർ എടുക്കുന്നതിനോട് എനിക്കും യോജിപ്പ് ഉണ്ടായിട്ടല്ല. ഓക്കെ. So I will wind up things in maybe 10 or 15 minutes. Okay. So finally we are going to the ideas of quantum mechanics. Okay. അപ്പോൾ ഇങ്ങനെയെല്ലാം ഉള്ള ഇതുപോലെ പാർട്ടിക്കിളിനെയും വേവിനെയും പോലെ ബിഹേവ് ചെയ്യുന്ന the quantities, how to solve these matter waves. These matter waves. Okay. So adhu mundu we should know what is the quantity which we needed to find, because if you are dealing with a particle, you have a position vector. We can solve that, and in the case of a wave, we know that u of xt, that arbitrary quantity, that is varying quantity. So here what is varying? That was the question first addressed, and the answer is that is called the wave function. The wave function. So wave function in one dimension is psi of x comma t. Psi of x comma t is in general a complex quantity. It's in general a complex quantity. So നമ്മൾ ഇത്ര നേരം ഇങ്ങനത്തെ ഒരു കോംപ്ലക്സ് ഫിസിക്കൽ എൻറ്റിറ്റിനെ കണ്ടിട്ടില്ല. കോംപ്ലക്സ് ഫിസിക്കൽ എൻറ്റിറ്റി കാണാൻ പറ്റുകയുമില്ല. Okay. That is imaginary. So how can you extract a real entity out of an imaginary quantity? By just finding its modulus square. Okay. So if you find the modulus square of psi, that should be a real quantity, and that is what we call the probability density. Probability density. Probability density adine kaananulla sadhyada, a particle ne allengil adine aa oru particular sthalathu kaananulla sadhyada, probability. Okay. And this probability density, if you integrate over the entire length, total probability should be 1. The total probability should be 1. So if the integration is from the limits from minus infinity to plus infinity. Okay. So this equation tells you some ideas about what is psi, what is the dimension of psi. Psi dimension ennu parayunnunde, because you see this is an integral equation, doesn't matter. You have some quantity square into length is dimensionless. Some quantity square into length is dimensionless. So this quantity square should have a dimension of 1 by length. 1 by length. So psi is having a dimension of 1 by square root of length in the case of a one-dimensional wave function. In the case of a one-dimensional wave function. Okay. So in a two-dimensional wave function, this will be some psi of x, y, and t. Then this is a mod square of dx dy. You must have two integrals, minus infinity to plus infinity, minus infinity to plus infinity. This should be equals 1. Here also you can say the dimensions. because this is a length here and length here, totally you have a length square into some quantity is dimensionless, means this psi square should have a dimension of 1 over length square, and this psi should have a dimension of 1 by length. Similarly, if you look at the three-dimensional problem, so this is in the case of a 1 dimension, this is in the case of a 2 dimension, and finally in a 3 dimension you will get it something like 1 by length raised to 3 by 2. 1 by length raised to 3 by 2. So quantum mechanics നമ്മൾ ഇക്വേഷൻ നോക്കുന്ന സമയത്ത് നമുക്ക് ആദ്യം അറിയേണ്ട ഒരു സാധനം എന്ന് പറയുന്നത് the dimension is not arbitrary, but it has a certain dimension for the wave function. It depends on its is it a 1-dimensional problem, 2-dimensional, 3-dimensional? Its dimension changes, like 1 by square root of length to 1 by length to 1 by length raised to 3 by 2. Okay. And immediately I will write the equation to solve this psi is what we call the Schrodinger equation. The Schrodinger equation. Okay. So Schrodinger equation is written like this. It is minus h rho square over 2m rho square by dou x square. I am writing in a 1-dimensional platform. So psi of xt plus some v of x into some psi of xt equals IH cross dou by dou t of psi of xt. Okay. So this is suppose you are taking a free particle, you can neglect this v of x part, because this part is the kinetic energy part. You know, this is the kinetic energy part. Okay, this is the kinetic energy part, and this is the potential energy part. This is the potential energy part. Or altogether, I can write this is the total energy acting on psi of xt is equals IH cross dou by dou t of psi of xt. Okay. So let me try to analyze its dimensions. Okay. Okay. So നമുക്ക് ഇതിന്റെ ഡയമെൻഷൻ ഒന്ന് നോക്കാം. ഞാൻ ഇതിനെ എനർജി വായിക്കാം. Okay. Okay. So starting from such an equation, ഇങ്ങനെ ഒരു ഇക്വേഷൻ കിട്ടിക്കഴിഞ്ഞാൽ അതിനെ ഡയമെൻഷനലി നോക്കുമ്പോൾ അതിൽ ഏറ്റവും suppose you have a term like here, you have a term here, first term is a product term plus this term equals this term എന്നാണ് ഈ ഇക്വേഷൻ എഴുതിയിരിക്കുന്നത് അല്ലേ. You have a plus b equals c. So if it's a plus b equals c, if it is something like a plus b equals c, all should have the same dimensions, because a is energy, then b should be energy, then some c should be energy. If a is length, then b also should be length, then c also should be length. Okay. So all the three terms must have the same dimensions. Okay. So let us check. ഇതിൽ നോക്കുന്ന സമയത്ത് നമ്മൾ ഇതിൽ ഏതെങ്കിലും ഏറ്റവും സിംപ്ലസ്റ്റ് ആയ ടേം എടുക്കാം. So this is the simplest term, v of x into psi of xt. Okay. What is the dimension of this? V of x is energy. This is potential energy into psi of xt is 1 by square root of length. Okay. So you compare this both terms, you will get it the same. The same. This is equal to right hand side. We have I dimension h cross. H cross is actually h divided by 2 pi. H cross. So that is perfectly fine, because 2 pi did not have any dimension. So h and h prime are having the same dimensions of angular momentum. So this is some angular momentum multiplied by some dou by dou t has a 1 by time into the wave function is is something like 1 by square root of length, 1 by square root of length, plus what is here? What is here in the first term? Here it is again, you have an h cross square, that is the angular momentum square, divided by you have a mass term, mass. Then you have a dou square by dou x square is 1 by length square, 1 by length square, and then you have 1 by square root of length, 1 by square root of length. Okay. So is this consistent with the dimensions? This is consistent. So let us, this is wave function term is common, and 1 by square root of length that is fine. Okay. Then what else you can calculate? Here it is energy. Here it is energy. So this term should be an energy. This term should be an energy. This term also should be an energy. This term also should be an energy. Okay. So let us analyze. This is angular momentum square. Angular momentum is length into momentum P. Okay. So length square into P square divided by mass into 1 by length square, 1 by length square. So what happens if you have a length square here and length square here, and what else is P square by M, P square by M, or what is P? P is another MV, MV. So this is M square V square divided by M. This is M V square, because you have a 1 M in the numerator, is cancelled with it. mv square, half mv square is the kinetic energy. So mv square is a unit of kinetic energy. So this is energy. mv square എന്ന് പറയുന്നതില്ലേ half mv square നമ്മൾ kinetic energy ക്ക് പറയുന്നതല്ലേ. അപ്പം mv square എന്താണ്? It's a unit of energy. So this is fine. This is energy. Okay. Similarly ഇവിടെ നോക്കിയേ. ഇവിടെ എന്താ പറയാ? You have an angular momentum. You have an angular momentum, that is length into momentum divided by time. Length divided by time. So what is length divided by time? Length divided by time is velocity. It's velocity into momentum. Okay. And what is momentum? Velocity into momentum is mass into velocity. So it's again mv square. It's again mv square. And so this is again energy term. So this is again energy term. Okay. So this is how we analyze each and every equation. In any scenario, like whether we are dealing with quantum mechanics, classical mechanics, statistical electrodynamics, wherever you find, even in electronics, wherever you find an equation, that should be dimensionally consistent. If it is not, there should be some error. നിങ്ങൾ ഒരാൾ ആരെങ്കിലും എടുത്തുകൊണ്ടിരിക്കുന്ന സമയത്ത് ടോക്ക് എടുത്തുകൊണ്ടിരിക്കുന്ന സമയത്ത് ക്ലാസ് എടുത്തുകൊണ്ടിരിക്കുന്ന സമയത്ത് നിങ്ങൾക്ക് രണ്ട് ടേം ആഡ് ചെയ്യുന്ന സമയത്ത് മൂന്നാമത്തെ ടേം കിട്ടുന്നില്ല, അത് വേറെ ഡയമെൻഷൻ ആണെങ്കിൽ you can directly ask, this is not dimensionally consistent. So that's a tool everyone can use analyzing in these problems. Okay, so I try to stop by saying a solution of this. ഇതിന്റെ ഒരു സൊല്യൂഷനും കൂടെ പറഞ്ഞിട്ട് ഞാൻ നിർത്താം. Okay, I will show you a wave function. Maybe suppose the wave function of a particle in a potential well in a particle in a wave function കാണിക്കാം. So that is the wave function of a particle in a one-dimensional potential well. So this is a particular Hamiltonian, and you have a wave solution psi of xt is equal to square root of 2 by L sine n pi x over L, okay, e raised to minus I e n t by h cos. Okay, ഇതാണ് ഒരു wave function കിട്ടുക. ആ wave function ഇത് കിട്ടിയാലും നോക്കൂ, you have an exponent here, okay. So this quantity should be definitely dimensionless. Okay, no doubt at all. Okay, so this is dimensionless because means E n t by h cross is a number. Okay, so En having a dimension of h cross divided by t, h cross divided by t. So that is, or you can write h cross has a dimension of energy into time. Energy into time. These are things because you must have come across the energy time uncertainties. Energy time uncertainties. Some delta E, delta T is of the order of h cross. That is delta E is uncertainty in energy. That's an energy. Delta T is an uncertainty in time, and that's a time. Is of the order of h cross. So that is dimensionally okay. H cross is of the order of E into h cross, E into time. Okay. Whereas sine, argument of sine is again dimensionless because n is a number, it's okay. Pi is a number, it's no dimension. X and L is the length of the potential well. Okay. Length L. Okay. So this is length and this is length, that is cancelled. Okay. Means the entire dimension of the wave function is carried by this quantity, and that is as expected is 1 by square root of length. 1 by square root of length. That is the expected dimension of the wave function. Okay. You can analyze each and every term in your solution, in your equation, and in everything. That will definitely help you to solve the problems. So throughout the lecture, I didn't tell you any ideas to solve the problem, but I've told you the tool to analyze each and everything, and that will definitely help you to solve the problem. I cannot explain everything, I mean how to solve each and everything in a single class, but I hope you will understand the ideas of how to dimensionally analyze these factors and come to a conclusion that whether this one is correct or this one is wrong. Okay. Hope this is fine. If you have any doubts, to ask me. Okay, I think I will stop here.
Okay, thank you, sir. Danya, are you there?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. I think students have some net issues. Some of them have already left. We will make the video of this session, sir. So it will be useful to more students.
Okay.
YouTube video. We will make YouTube video.
Okay. Thank you.
Okay, sir, we have come to the end of the session. Good evening, everyone. I am here to deliver the word of thanks on behalf of all who are present here. First of all, let me thank Karanath sir for spending his valuable time with us and by presenting us such a wonderful and informative session. Thank you, sir, for your effort and guidance. And we hope that in future we could see more such sessions from you. Next, I am grateful to our HOD, Sheena ma'am, for her constant support and encouragement to organize and conduct such great sessions. Thank you, Sheena ma'am. Now, I express my gratitude to all our teachers for their support and guidance. Last but not least, I thank all my students present here for their undivided attention and participation. Thank you all once again. I'll be posting the feedback link to each of your WhatsApp group. So please write that, do that. Thank you. You can log out from this.
Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you.